arbitrator will give him a contract. There actually was an article by Frank Saravalli in the Daily Faceoff talking about the projected salary cap. And I was actually reading it. They're projecting that next year it should go up to 82.5 million. And then every other year it's going to go up by 1 more million. And by 2026, 2027, the salary cap should be at 91.5. Next year, their revenue, their hockey-related revenue is supposed to be projected at 4.8 billion. What really helped was the Seattle Kraken expansion. There was also the ESPN, Disney, Turner Sports deal for next year, basically. And then also there was Jesperi Kotkaniemi, who was qualified but still hasn't received an offer. He still hasn't been signed yet. He's actually back in Finland, in Pori. There was some unfortunate news this week. His father actually had a tumor removed, so I'm pretty sure he's been dealing with that, and I'm sure that's why we haven't really heard much. We wish all the best to him and his family, because his first coach was his dad, and his dad coaches in the Finnish league, so that's always our best to them. And basically, I was actually looking at Habs' eyes on the prize, and apparently his qualified offer for Kotkaniemi was around maybe like $900K, which I didn't really understand that. I don't know if that's legit or not, because his last contract was a 2-year, $4.8 million, which had an AAV of 2.4. But again, maybe because Kotkaniemi has taken a step back, he hasn't really fully developed into the player that Montreal wanted. He didn't start the playoffs, and then he finally came back in, and then he was sort of better. So this year is really we have to see what happens. The Canadians locked up Alex Burrows, for behind the bench, a 3-year deal. He was pretty good on the power play and running the offense. He got them from a 17.9 to an 18.5 on the power play. So again, he's going to be instrumental this year running the power play, running the offense. And Carey Price went to go have surgery in New York. Well, Paul Byron went with him. So he's actually had surgery in New York. It was done by Dr. Brian Kelly. And he's going to be out 5 months. So, like you said, probably in December.
Do we have any information as to what exactly the surgery is in the case of Byron?
They just said it was a hip surgery.
Oh, hip surgery. Damn.
Hip surgery, yes.
Yeah, so then December at the very minimum. Quick observation, you were mentioning in 26-27 the substantial raise in salary cap. Ironically, that coincides with Carey Price and Jeff Petry's contract being over. As a matter of fact, actually, no, I'm sorry. I'm going to backtrack. Everyone's contract is over except for Brendan Gallagher and Josh Anderson, who are going to be in their final years. So whoever the general manager is going to be by then is going to have a lot of money to play with. All right. Thanks a lot, Elias.
No problem.
Passe-moi un puck puis je vais en compter des buts.
And now we are going to send it over to our good friend Joshua Rosa. Josh, how are you doing today, man?
I'm doing good. How are you?
Very, very good. This has been quite the eventful episode, to say the very least. Now, I'm going to start this segment with you because we have been discussing a little bit about this for the last couple of days. Now, we've been seeing a lot of, depth signatures, in Cédric Paquette, Mathieu Perreault, Ryan Poehling is, as we mentioned before, is going to be really fighting hard to get a spot in the NHL this year. We got a little bit of a logjam going on for the fourth line positions, don't we?
Yeah, it's going to be fun to see the training camp and see how everyone fits in, because Montreal's got a problem, but it's one of those good problems that you have too many people and you have only so many slots. You could only take, 16 wingers? No, that's not right. 16 wingers per game. So Montreal's going to have to make some tough decisions. The top 4 wingers are pretty much set, and the centers are there. But when we're looking at the third and fourth line, there's going to be some big questions. Are we going to have to say, Cédric, pack at your bags, you're going down to Laval? Mathieu Perreault, my God, we don't actually have a spot for you. We just signed you. We already saw Tampa Bay carry Corey Perry away. Are we going to have to say bye, Byron? See ya, Yoel Armia. Good Lekanen on your next team. Jonathan Drouin, what are you doing?
Yeah, but I mean the I think the only thing that we could actually say for sure is that, Joel Armia is the only one who actually is going to be, in the lineup regularly, because you cannot, give a part-time position to a guy who's making $3.5 million a year. That's a given, right?
Yeah, you just signed him. He's a good defensive guy as well. He plays on the penalty kill, and he's absolutely a beast there. But there's just the question of where are all of these people going to go? Like Josh Anderson's another guy who was basically a third line winger for Montreal this year. Is he going to continue in that? He's making a lot of money. I think 5.5, something like that. Scott can make sure that on that number every year for a third line, fourth line guy. Because Mike Hoffman, he's going to be in the top 6 with his goal scoring. Same with Gallagher, Caulfield, Toffoli. It's going to be tough to see those guys out, but it's going to be really interesting to see Ryan Poehling. Is he going to be left down in Laval? He played great in Laval this year, but with the addition of Paquette and Perreault, it's going to be hard to see him making enough of an impact to make the team.
I want to give Sam the opportunity to express himself on this topic. Do you see a surprise maybe on the fourth line, or is it actually just going to be, Lehkonen and Army on the wings, and then probably a rotation between Paquette and Perreault?
I just, first of all, I like the way you say Perreault. It's a very French way of saying Mathieu Perreault.
Mathieu Perreault.
I know that's how it's pronounced.
It's all
I
good.
just found it very comical. As someone who lives in Toronto, you don't hear a lot of it's Mathieu Perreault. No, Mathieu Perreault.
Mathieu Perreault, yeah, because ladies and gentlemen, for those who don't know, we are recording this on Zoom, COVID protocols and everything. We're keeping our distance. And we got some people from Ontario. We got Hassan from Ontario, Sam and Josh, for example, so yes, sometimes being of a Francophone native myself, I like to say Mathieu Perreault. But go ahead, man, for Mathieu Perreault.
No worries, Patrick. It's interesting. I think if you asked 6 or 10, I'm just going to say 6 because there's 6 of us on here, but if you ask 10 people, you get 10 different answers. I'm going to give my answer, which is I think that the fourth line is going to be Arturi Lehkonen, Cedric Paquette down the middle, and Jonathan Drouin. Now, hear me out, folks. I think the first line is pretty much set in stone with the Suzuki, Caulfield, Toffoli. I think the second line's Kotkaniemi, Hoffman, and Anderson. And then I like the third line as a grinding checking line of Evans, Gallagher, and Armia. I think those 9 right there, I would have no problem with that. Then you brought up the point, Patrick, and I know Josh brought up as well about there's just really a cluster of players vying for that last spot. First and foremost, what is the situation surrounding Jonathan Drouin? Is his spot available? As we were told in the final scrum or the final interview by Bergevin after they lost Game 5, he is okay and he will be back at training camp. Then you have, secondly, Paul Byron. He's on the IR for 5 months, so we know at least he won't be in the lineup until midway through the season at the very earliest. Then you're looking down the middle. I'm a big Ryan Poehling fan. I know we saw one game, but I put so much money on the Habs winning that one game. And Ryan Poehling just balled out. I have the biggest Ryan Poehling. I'll get a jersey of him because I owe him, he won me a couple $100. I'll say it. It was very, very nice watching Ryan Poehling just dominate that game. I said, this is the future. And I really think he is part of the future. I just don't know where he fits in. I think Paquette is what I would call a poor man's Philip Deneau. And the reason I say poor man's because he ain't making the Philip Deneau money that he's making over in LA. And Paquette kind of does the same thing. He's good in his own zone. He's strong defensively. He wins faceoffs. And I think when you look at the coaching staff of Richardson, Ducharme, and now re-signed Alex Burrows, as Elias just mentioned, there are guys that we don't care about scoring on the fourth line. We need to shut teams down. And I think Paquette, who's a Stanley Cup winner in Tampa Bay a couple years ago, is going to show that he is going to be good for that spot. Perreault kind of reminds me of that Michael Frolik role. He'll step in if there's an injury or so, but I really like Arturi Lehkonen. Obviously scored the biggest goal in the last couple decades, sending Montreal to the Stanley Cup. And I think if Jonathan Drouin is healthy, he gets that final spot on that fourth line. Is it good to have a $5.5 million player on the fourth line? I think we could all agree no. but I have no idea where else he would fit in. And you have to kind of play him with that salary cap. So that's my 2 cents on that fourth line. I really would like to see Poehling step in, but I think they're going to go with more of a proven player. And I think, in terms of the depth chart of that last, extra scratches, it's going to go Perreault and then Poehling. So whoever goes out, Perreault will step in, and then Ryan Poehling, unless he just wows everyone at training camp.
Exactly. I was just going to mention that unless, there's a huge surprise out of training camp, the likes of Poehling making the actual starting roster is a little more slim. I think he's mostly going to be used as an emergency backup in case of injury and whatnot. But quick note, and then I'm going to send it to Scott, and then Elias, you're up after. I half agree with what you say, Sam, because I think that I don't think Drouin's going to start on the fourth line, and I don't think we're going to have that army on the left side again with Gallagher and like the whole three righties. But I know we're going to have that with Toffoli, Caulfield, and Suzuki regardless. But I'm pretty confident that the fourth line will the wingers will more likely be Lehkonen and Armia playing together with a rotation of mostly between Paquette and Perreault, as I enunciate that. But because, I do agree that Cédric Paquette is a poor man's Philippe Danault. I mean, that's really obvious. However, he's a very, very, very hard-working and hard-hitting player as well. His body is not made, though, for an 82-game stretch, especially after, such a hard season and everything. So I think it's going to be kind of more 50-50 between, Perreault and Paquette. But you know what? I mean, that's just one man's opinion versus another. Scott, what do you got? What do you think? What's going to happen on the fourth line, according in your opinion?
Glad we're finally bringing up Mathieu Perreault, because I actually almost forgot to mention him over the course, because after we recorded last episode, right after it ended, it was announced that the Canadiens had signed Perreault, and I thought to myself, oh, what a great move that is. I've been a fan of Mathieu Perreault ever since his only season with the Anaheim Ducks back in 2015, and he's been with Winnipeg since the very start to where they are now as one of the sort of better teams in what you would call what used to be the North Division, or the Canadian teams that exist outside the NHL. He signed to a good term. He's a Swiss Army knife. He can play all over the lineup. And in regard to what you said about Montreal's fourth line, I think it'd be best if Montreal ran with a system where they try to give guys that maybe weren't given such ample opportunities last season opportunities. Maybe swapping in Perreault every once in a while, then maybe adding Paquette when you need more of a defensive guy on the fourth line, spin like that. And going back to what Sam had said, since he just departed, thanks by the way for your contributions, I feel like adding Ryan Poehling there could also be really interesting. Poehling finally came into his own as the offensive, sort of showing off the offensive abilities that he hadn't really figured out quite yet at the professional level. So I feel like Montreal's really got a lot to look forward to in terms of their fourth line, and a lot to sort of work with. And hey, if anything, if worse comes to worse, we could do the 2018-19 Canadiens route, which was call up a guy like Kenny Agostino, Michael Chaput, make that your fourth line, run with a fourth line like that, give these guys opportunities.
Why not at this point? Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and maybe they can bring energy.
Elias.
I just want to make a quick comment on Jonathan Drouin. If you bring him back and you basically put him on the fourth line, I feel like that's just going to maybe push him back. And I would be pretty sure that the French media would be like freaking out. Oh, they're putting Jonathan Drouin on the fourth line. They're burying him. I'm actually looking at the depth chart right now. Personally, I would put Jake Evans with. It's kind of hard because I'm trying to find like wingers, and it's like difficult. Like maybe like you make a line, I don't know, like Jake Evans, Perreault, and like it's so hard to like figure it out exactly, to be honest with you. And then maybe you put him with like a Lehkonen or something.
Yeah, but that's the whole point of this discussion as well, because there are so many opportunities. But just a quick comment about Jonathan Drouin, and then Sebastian, I'm going to send it to you. Yeah, okay. The media will probably freak out, especially on the Francophone side as well. But there's also been a lot of sympathy about his situation and the fact that he was dealing with whatever it is that he was dealing with right now. Also, don't forget, whoever is going to be manning the right side of the third line will be making either 5.5 or 6.5 million a year. That's also something that's pretty unheard of, because the way this team is created, there's a big chance that Brendan Gallagher is going to be the guy on the third line. This is a guy who's going to be making $6.5 million next year. Worst case scenario, he goes on a hot streak. He takes Josh Anderson's spot on the second line, or depending, or vice versa. Josh Anderson, $5.5 million as well. That's a lot of money for third line. So I don't think that necessarily, Drouin, I think he's making 5.2, I think, or something like that, or 5.5.